It's picking us up.
Is it?
Yeah.
Back on the record and expressing to the council, we are continuing with the examination of the lieutenant at this point, Mr. Gross.
And thank God I may please report. Is it Agent Crooks or Lieutenant Crooks?
Lieutenant's fine.
Okay. Lieutenant, as I understand it, at the time you were supervising the crime scene department.
Yes, sir, I was.
And so you responded relatively quickly within a couple of hours to this incident.
Yes, sir, that was mainly due to responding from my residents. I was coming from the Columbia area, and the other agents were coming from Florence and Aiken.
Okay. And just as kind of an overview of what you do in your job, you respond, you get to a crime scene, and then you collect information.
Yes, sir.
So that you have a general idea of what you might be dealing with.
Yes, sir.
And after you collect information, you start looking for evidence.
Well, we do a walkthrough, try to get a game plan, figure out who's going to do what, and then we start processing the scene, trying to locate, document, and collect evidence. Yes, sir.
And you said you were there 12, 13, 14 hours, something like that?
Yes, sir, approximately.
All right, and we saw some photographs earlier that were both in the nighttime and then later in the daytime.
Yes, sir.
And I think from your testimony, it was fair to say that y'all put out markers at nighttime.
Yes, sir.
And we could see those markers in some of the photographs.
Yes, sir.
And then as you looked around more in the daytime, you found more evidence and you put out more markers.
Yes, sir.
And what you're doing is you're trying to document everything that's there so that we can come back and talk about it in a meaningful way later on.
Yes, sir.
And you have several things at your disposal to do that. Obviously, the pictures that you take, right?
Yes,
and you make notes.
yes, sir.
And are you out there with a pad and paper?
Yes, sir.
All right. But you end up doing a report later.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's something that's basically, if I understand it, when you're putting out the markers, and you're getting information, you want to make sure that you're identifying what is shown in that marker, right?
Yes, sir.
And then sometimes even after that, you continue to receive information from other investigators, right?
Yes, sir.
And so then you end up with a report, in this case, where you made some notations about what you found.
By report, you mean the actual report that was issued?
Yeah, let me do this. I want to show you what we've marked, and it's in evidence without objection. It's Defendants 135. There's a cover letter for the report. And this was done by Mr. Prince, but
Yes, sir.
he worked under your supervision.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've got the cover letter, and then it looks like there's 4 pages kind of describing things, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you've got a diagram of the whole area that we've been seeing on screen, right?
Yes, sir.
The legend to the diagram, right?
Yes, sir.
Then you've got a diagram with the legend on it of the house. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then you've got a diagram that shows distances, right? And then you've got a page that lists some of those measurements, right?
Yes.
Then you've got final 2 pages that show where the bullet impacts were on the front of the house and on the door in the hallway inside the house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm going to leave number 135 up here. I imagine you've got a copy of it with you. I'm going to ask you some questions about that in a little bit. What I want to do is start kind of generally. This was a picture that was taken at night, I guess.
Yes, sir. It's still dark.
All right, that's Defendant's Exhibit number 3. And of course, when you're taking the pictures at night, you have flashes, right?
Yes, sir.
So the lighting that we see in the front of that, a lot of that comes from the flash, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. This is Defendant's 128 is a view of the house kind of from an angle, Benny's house. It's not one of your photos, but you recognize that.
Yes, sir. That's the house.
All right. And Barrel State Road, Annie Drive, and of course you can see how there's elevation from the house to the road.
Yes, sir.
And that was really depicted pretty dramatically, I think, in the panorama view that you showed earlier. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you can see how across the whole front it slopes down into the yard. Right?
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, you called it the stoop. There's a stair that goes up, and the stoop, and then into the house. Right. Okay. Okay. So what I've done now is I've put Defense Exhibit 128, which we were just looking to, next to Defense Exhibit 64. Right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the diagram we've been talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the diagram, which is one of the pages inside the report that's Defense 135.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And on this, just so we're kind of clear, this is a blow-up of part of that. You identified Roger Rice. V period Roger Rice Jr. means victim, right? And S period Benny Brown Jr. Means the suspect, Benny Brown.
No, sir. It means subject.
Subject, okay. You did not list as subjects Rico Kinsborough, did you?
No, sir.
Or Chris Brown?
No, sir.
And I think when you were testifying on direct, you said initially you were provided information that there was a encounter or an incident between cousins, and initially you thought that was before the police got there?
Yes, sir.
And then later you learned that it was at about the same time?
Yes, sir. I learned at a preliminary hearing was the first I received that information.
All right. But you don't dispute that information here today?
No, sir.
Because you testified to it twice now. Okay. It also says to see the legend.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Well, right, if you look right here, where you've got some description, it says see page 2 for legend.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so this page over here, which is Defense Exhibit 35, it's the legend, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And again, we've got the victim identified as Roger Rice, and Vinny is the subject, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And basically what you can do is you can put these two pages next to each other like I've done here. And, for example, P1 matches P1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let's talk about R1 for a second, okay? You remember the solicitor asking you some questions about R1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here. If you're facing and looking at the left of Defense Exhibit 4, I'm going to start over here, and we're going to go down Barrel State Road, then down Annie Drive, kind of back around the house, and then into the yard, okay? Defense Exhibit 18, this is the car we were just talking about.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I think your testimony was well, it's labeled R1, and on the legend, R1 corresponds to a relative car, as opposed to a car of one of the relatives, as opposed to a police officer car.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this car, I think you said that some of the people came to the scene in that car?
Well, I assume they did because we were told that was one of the vehicles for one of the cousins that had appeared, and that the white vehicle was also one of the relatives.
Okay. And we'll get to the other white vehicles over here. We'll get to that in a minute. But this was the ones that came that were involved in the confrontation.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Now, we're jumping a little bit ahead. But when you got there, there was not a burgundy car there, was it?
The only red vehicle we saw was the one in the carport. No, sir. I didn't see any other cars on the road.
All right. Now, have you seen Officer Prather's car video, dash cam video?
No, sir. I haven't seen any video.
All right. Well, in his video, there's a burgundy car in front of him. All right. Does that surprise you?
Surprise me?
Yeah.
No, sir.
All right. Is it something, is this the first time you've heard that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then would it interest you to know that there's been some testimony that guns were put into that burgundy car and carried away from Benny's house?
Had we been told that, we would have tried to look at it, look at it, yes, sir.
Right, because you did look at the one in Defense Exhibit number 18 that they came to the crime scene in, right?
Yes, sir, we did.
And you didn't find anything in that.
No, sir, we did not.
All right, but if you had an opportunity to look in the burgundy vehicle, you could have done that.
Yes, sir. If we were requested to look at it, we would have gone and looked at it.
And you absolutely would have done that if you had information that evidence was taken away from Benny's house in that car.
If we were requested, again, we're working in conjunction with the investigators. You know, sometimes they may go ahead and handle certain aspects and decide not to call us to look at it further. But if, yes, sir, if we were requested to look at it, we would have looked at it.
All right. What I want to do now is move just a little further down Barrel State Road, and what's in Defense Exhibit 1, that is Officer Prather's patrol car, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's it, also at nighttime, just at a different angle, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And this is a view of it in the daytime.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's after, obviously, the markers were put out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 markers, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that corresponds to the 7 markers that are in front of P1, this, our Officer Prather's car in Defense Exhibit 34, right?
Yes, sir.
And you can even see where, it's hard to tell in the two-dimensional picture, but you can see where it begins to slope down towards the yard, correct?
Yes, sir. It's a pretty decent slope.
Right. And all of these turned out to be shell casings, right?
Yes, sir.
And when I say these, all the markers in Defense Exhibit 32.
Yes, sir.
And I think that was consistent with what we have in this big box. So that was all shots that Officer Prather fired.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Kind of going back to a night picture, if you just kind of continue down and I guess start down Annie Drive a little bit, we see in Defense Exhibit number 4 where Lieutenant Plaxico's truck is. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And where right behind it in this picture is where Deputy Rice's car is parked.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that, of course, corresponds to U1. U means unmarked police vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And P means patrol vehicle. So both P1 and P2 are the marked patrol cars.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. And so, all right. So we're really kind of focusing in on that area now. This is another angle that's a little bit blurry, but you can see where you would place some markers at that point, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, here's another view. Of course, the flash is lighting up the front. I mean, that light there is not coming from this light, is it?
No, that's the majority of that's my camera flash. Yes, sir.
Right, right. It was dark.
Yes, sir. It's dark.
Okay. That's a close-up of markings that you put out at nighttime. And this is right next to Lieutenant Plaxico's truck, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And here's one in the daytime, and that's added number 31. And I guess that's evidence of when you got back out there the next day in the daylight, you were able to find more, right?
Yes, sir. By next day, just to be clear, we didn't leave and come back. We were there.
Right. This 12 to 14 hours
Yes.
continuous. Good point. 17, that's a shell casing that was found in the bed of the truck.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We see 18 over here in front of Deputy Rice's car. I couldn't find a picture of 18, but that's also a shell casing.
Yes, sir. I had marked 18 and was in the process of doing a lot of my close-ups. I believe it was Agent Hardy was actually collecting that. I believe he collected it before I could get a photograph.
Okay. All right. And then I've got a picture of Defense Exhibit 21, which is on the, I guess, the the tailgate of the truck with it in its closed position. That's a clip that's depicted there, right?
Yes, sir, it's a magazine for a handgun.
All right, so that's, I'm sure that was Lieutenant Plaxico's handgun, right?
I assume that it was. I'm not sure from the standpoint of any firearms tests.
Okay.
If they said it came back to a Glock, or a SIG, but
We
that's
do-
my assumption, yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Here's a picture from the back, and this one's still at night. So you can see the 4 markers on the ground by the tire. Of course, you added one later. There was a 5th one down there. A 6th one in the bed of the truck. Another one over in front of Deputy Rice's car. And then I believe you found one underneath the car the next day, and that was in this picture,
Yes.
right? All right, and so all of these went to Lieutenant Plaxico's gun.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, so now what I want to do is start going down Annie Drive a little bit, okay? And when we're going down Annie Drive, this first car that we see, the white car that's on the angle,
Yes, sir.
that matches R2, correct?
Yes, sir.
R2 meaning a relative vehicle, one of the relatives.
Yes, sir.
All right, and it kind of, I think you said earlier, kind of bottomed down. It's like they were driving through there and
Locked it out, got stuck, yes, sir.
okay. And when you look down the road here further, you see, if you look kind of back in this area there, that would be Officer Robinson, Eric Robinson's car.
Yes, sir, it's a police car.
All right. And then if you look even behind that, you see a house in the background that a couple lived there at the time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, just to kind of orient things, over here you see a shed in the yard, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's not on your diagram.
No, sir.
Okay. And in fact, on your diagram, right down here, it says all items are not shown.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we know the burgundy car is not shown, and we know that shed is not shown, right?
Correct.
All right, and this is, and you're candid, I mean, this is not to scale.
Right.
In some ways, this is more to be used as a reference. So when you're looking at, say, an up-close picture, you can kind of see where it was, but you can also actually even go back there like we're going to do later today and kind of look around and have an idea of where things are.
Yes, sir. Particularly the measurements are done in the event anything needs to be put back in its location. That's why we triangulate the measurements.
I mean, for example, I mean, the cars in real life aren't almost as big as the house.
No, sir.
And it's over 100 feet from the house to Eric Robinson's
Yes,
car.
that's correct.
But it's only about 80 feet from the house to Officer Plexico's car.
That sounds about right.
Right. And then you actually, one of the pages, well, 2 of the pages in your report that's within this 135 actually have lines that show those measurements.
Yes,
Right? And there's a page that shows that, and then another page that has an additional explanation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, this is Defense 11 is another picture showing the family member's car that's hung up. We're getting a little closer to where Eric Robinson's car is. This is kind of walking past the family member's car and looking back up Annie Drive in Defense 12. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you can really kind of see the wheel kind of stuck in that ditch down there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is not a picture that you took, fence 126, but that kind of shows how there's sort of a drop off there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir, that looks like the same location, roughly at the same area.
All right, so now we're moving a little bit further down, looking at it from the other angle in fence exhibit number 15. And now coming around, you can see up here, you can see the light pole, and you can tell it's not really lighting up a lot, right?
Well, the flash is providing all that light that you see in the front.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to see in those photographs without doing a meter shot how much light's been put up by that street light.
And you still see the shed over there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when you get around to, in Defense Exhibit 16, we're now looking at where Deputy Rice was when he was brought behind the car and eventually EMS was working on it.
Yes.
And some of what is in these photographs are some of the equipment that he was carrying with him that night, right?
Yes, sir.
Like a flashlight, I believe is number 9.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can still see, that shed in this picture, but you really don't have a view of the front door from there, do you?
No, sir.
Right. And really, if this was more to scale, you two would be even a little further back, wouldn't it?
I don't recall exactly in relation to the house how far behind or the side. It could have been a little bit more towards behind.
Okay. All right. All right, I want to switch a little bit and, move from area U2 and kind of come around to the other side of the house. The fence exhibit 53 is a picture that you took looking back in that direction, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And of course you can tell where Barrel Stage Road is in sort of the right-hand side of the picture, right?
Yes, sir.
And you can see the elevation going up to the road.
Yes, sir.
All right. This is just a closer picture, just kind of focusing in on the back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to move from that back up to this area that's highlighted on the diagram, moving back to that family member's vehicle. And in Defense Exhibit 50, we see that gray or silver car, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's the car that the people who had a confrontation in the yard, that's the one that brought some of them to the confrontation, right?
Yes, sir. That was what we were told.
All right. And 34 and 35 are bullets that match the gun that they turned over.
What do you mean by match? As far as like the
But,
caliber? Yes, sir.
The caliber.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you know that there was evidence that they had 2 guns? I'm just asking what he knows, Your Honor.
You can ask that, whether he knows or not.
Yes.
Do you know if there was evidence that the 2 people that came to the gray car each had a gun?
I was not given any information about that. I knew about that gun because they brought it to us. We were not brought any other weapons
All right.
by the investigator.
And if you had had a chance to look in the burgundy car, you could have looked to see if the second gun had been carried away.
If I had been asked to look, I would have looked for it. And if we had found any firearms evidence, I would have collected it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. If we look at Defense Exhibit 51 now, this is an exhibit that's showing 34 and 35, those 2 bullets, and looking back towards Benny's house, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the end of the house that we're looking at is the end with the 2 bedrooms, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To the left side if you're looking at the front.
Right, if you're standing in the front, this is the left end, and that's the end with the bedroom.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now I've got still defense exhibit 64, but I've highlighted the area at the house and the area in the yard. Okay? And at number 27, we're looking at the front. So the left side is the bedroom side, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And when you go through the door, this is where the living room is, where Benny's gun was ultimately found, right?
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, there's a carport on the end. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay. I'm going to enlarge a portion of the front yard, okay?
Okay.
Let's just slide this up for a second. We have a marker 28, 29, and 30, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I slide this back down, over here is marker 28, is that correct?
Appears to be marker 28.
Okay. And over here is marker 29 and 30.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you see where I've got that circle, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just so we're clear, that's 28.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No doubt about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I want to stop here for a minute. I said we were going to have some more questions about Exhibit 135, which is your report, right?
Yes, sir.
And in the first part of the report, there's 4 pages, well, there's the cover page, but then there's 4 pages where you document things that were located out here at Benny's house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I would like for you to turn to page 3 of 4 of that section of the report, okay?
Okay.
And in this section of the report, if we're talking about item 28, in that part of the report, you identify that as a body camera, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was turned over to the Lawrence Sheriff's Office, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, I believe it was turned over to a SLED agent, field agent, investigator.
And then eventually to Lawrence.
You probably, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I mean, I have to look at the chain of custody, I can tell you, but.
yeah. Well, your report says the camera was turned over to the Lawrence Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
And it refers to the chain of
Okay.
custody. I mean, that's an example of one of the things where you come back to the office, you type up these reports,
Right.
and you combine all that information.
Right.
Okay. If you look at the legend, which we looked at earlier, and we're still talking about marker 28, right? You have that on the legend. Can you look at that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
All right, and you would agree that in there's 3 columns on the legend, and in the right-hand column, the second item, marker 28, victim camera from ground, right? So that refers right there in this picture.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we saw earlier in your report on 2 different pages where you identified V. Roger Rice Jr.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Some of them on the sketches, or?
On the, well, I'll show you. We were looking earlier, we were looking at the legend.
Yes, sir.
Where we were just reading from, where it says victim camera. Right over here it says victim Roger Rice. And on the diagram that we keep putting up, it says victim Roger Rice Jr.
Yes, sir.
All right, and so this is the diagram that, what the diagrams are done after you take notes of the scene, go back to the office, type up your reports, right?
Correct.
All right, now I want to move over here and talk about 29 and 30, okay? If we look at the legend, are you still on that page?
Yes, sir.
All right, so marker 29 on the legend says belt clip by tree, right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And marker 30, right below that, says camera, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you go back to that first part of the full report, pages 3 or 4, okay? You there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In there, it says that marker 29, and we're talking about right over here,
Yes.
that marker 29 is the belt clip near the tree, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
next line says that that clip was turned over to the Lawrence Sheriff's Office, see chain of custody, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and in your direct, I think you referred to 30 as a camera. And in the legend, it was a camera, but in the notes, it actually says 30 is camera piece, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
And that was also given to the Lawrence Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now what we're looking up is at some of your close-ups, your real specific photographs, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and these are photographs you took.
I believe I did, yes, sir. Either me or agent, Marty would have taken them, yes, sir.
And when we're looking at the close-up of what was referred to as the victim's camera in number 28, you can see that, a close-up of that right there, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that's actually State's Exhibit 33. And if you look in what State's Exhibit 34, you see 29 and 30, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and 29 was the belt that, or the belt clip, and 30 is what you referred to as the camera piece, right?
Yes, sir.
And so if we enlarge that, you can tell that it's different than that. Item 30 is different than item 28.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we know you identified item 28 as being the victim or Roger Rice's body, right?
That's how it's listed, yes, sir.
Okay. So if we go back to Defense Exhibit 27, and we still have the enlargement that shows 29 and 30 over here on the right side, and 28 over in front of the door. Roger Rice was there, wasn't he? Number 28.
I can't say that he was at that exact location because I don't know how that camera came off his uniform, but I believe he was in the front yard, yes, sir.
Okay. And that camera clips onto your uniform, doesn't it?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
Okay. And so, Deputy Rice very well could have been standing right near marker 28 when he was shot.
That's possible. Now, I will say that when we were documenting that camera, we were under the impression that it was his, and then of course we turned it over for people to try to get video off of it. I don't know if there was a way they were able to confirm through some sort of serial number or anything that it was his, but I do know we found the two cameras.
Nobody's told you. No, you didn't find two cameras.
Or
You found a camera here, and you found a piece of a camera there.
Right. parts of the camera over there and then the camera there. I haven't been told whether it was specifically identified to anybody.
All right, well, you certainly are not sitting here today and ruling out that at marker 28 is where Roger Rice was when he got shot.
No, sir, I'm not.
You couldn't do that.
No, sir, I cannot.
All right. And so with the camera that's clipping on, part of it could have fallen off over here, and the rest of the stuff could have fallen off over there.
That's possible, yes, sir.
All right. And you were given information about, remember the gray car
Yes, sir.
that brought Rico and Chris to the scene?
Yes, sir.
You were given information that there was a confrontation in the front yard
Yes, sir.
at about the same time as the rest of the shooting?
Well, the initial information was before, that happened
Right.
before, yes, sir.
Right, but when it got corrected,
Yes.
it was right before what happened when the police returned fire. The corrected,
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
the corrected information was that the confrontation between Rico and Chris and another family member was right before the police returned fire.
Correct. It all happened at the same time.
All right. And you were also given information, of course, you can't really tell in what we've got as a blown up of 27, but if you keep going in this direction from left to right, you get to where Eric Robinson's patrol car was.
The white Crown Vic, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. And you had information that after Roger was shot, that was the direction that he moved.
Yes, sir.
And you can't rule out that he was shot at marker 28, walked across the front yard to where 29 and 30 is, and then continued with assistance over Eric Robinson's patrol car and eventually behind it.
That's correct.
And that is, in fact, why we go through this exercise, or you go through this exercise. It's not an exercise, it's very important, but you go through this process where you spend 10, 12, 14 hours documenting things, photographing it, so we can come to court and see it.
That's correct.
All right. Before we move on, you can begin to see there's some other area moving up towards the house, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I think in this area, if you turn back to your legend, we're looking at 19, 20, 21, and 22, correct? Is that right? Still here on the ground?
Oh, yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, and so that's areas, and there was evidence in there where they were rendering medical attention to Benny Brown.
That's what it appeared to me, yes, sir.
All right. And when you go up, let's see if we can get, when we look on the porch, 23 and 24, there's blood and there's a phone, right? All right, and we know from other testimony, and you know from information that you were provided, that Benny got on the phone, negotiated his surrender or arranged it, got to the front door, and then he was brought from the front door down to where we saw some of that medical stuff being used before, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I want to move inside the house. Looking at Defense Exhibit 66, that's the stairs up, and then you have 24, 27, and 39 just inside the door, and 33 over in the corner that would be diagonal from the door. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, so if we're inside the house now and we're looking there, the 39 was the fragment that you found behind the door.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to just stop here for a second because at this point you're documenting some of the shots that are coming into the house, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think you testified that you documented everything that you found out there, right? With a marker and a photograph.
Yes, sir.
All right, except for number 18 that was collected before you got the photograph.
Yes, sir.
But that's the only one.
I believe so. There may have been one other casing near the wall in front of the house that was picked up, but yes, sir.
Okay. But you can look at the bigger diagram and everything is marked.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think you testified earlier that there was holes in the front of the house, bullet holes in the front of the house, or impacts in the front of the house. The door, right?
Yes, sir.
There was a hall door, we'll look at it in a second, but a hall door that directly was open, so it lined up directly with the front door.
Yes, sir.
And there was bullets probably from the high-powered rifle that Officer Prather had, bullets that went through that hallway door, through the wall, and out the back of the house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said earlier that you were trying to look for evidence, particularly in the front and the back, because that's where you had information that it might be.
Yes, sir.
And that you yourself used a metal detector and walked around, or you had people walking around metal.
I did not use it. We had the other two crime scene agents used theirs, yes, sir.
And you had 2 shifts of doing that.
Yes, sir. A couple of agents took that over.
Now, correct me, but if the bullet comes in, goes through that door, travels through the kitchen, and goes out, there's a metal fragment somewhere in that backyard.
Or in the woods.
Or in the woods.
Far it went, yes, sir.
Right. And so, despite being out there for 14 hours, 2 teams of 2, 4 people looking for everything, every bit of evidence, every metal fragment, nothing was ever found behind the house.
No, sir.
All right. And so there's no way you can come into this courtroom and say that we found absolutely every piece of relevant evidence out there that day, is there? Because you didn't find the bullets that went through the house.
That is correct. We did not find all the firearms evidence.
And there was impacts on the front of the house, and some of that bullets would have gone back, right?
Well, it would have gone, instead of straight back, it would have gone down the house somewhere. Yes,
Somewhere.
sir.
And I think you said you got down and crawled on your
Yes, sir.
hands and knees, and you weren't able to locate those.
No, sir, I was not.
All right. And if somebody was out there shooting a revolver, and it didn't impact anywhere, that could still be out there.
Correct, it is possible a revolver could have been shot and there be no indications of it.
And just so we're clear, there is absolutely no way, sitting in this courtroom today, that you can rule out that a revolver was shot out there.
No, sir, I can't say that one was or one was not.
All right, we're looking at the front door, and we're at the front door, we just sort of turn, this is the front window of the house and the wall over there, right?
Yes, sir.
Now we've kind of gone down that wall and we're in the back corner, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's that white stool, we're looking at Fence Exhibit 35, and it was under that white little stool or table where you found the gun that Benny had.
Yes, sir.
And were you given information that he told the officers that he had left the gun inside the house when he came out?
I don't recall if we were given that information, but we felt confident he had a gun, and as soon as we went in the living room, it was pretty obvious there. We didn't have to look very hard for it.
If he told them the gun was still somewhere in that first room, that's consistent with what you have in item number 33.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And like you said, you didn't have to look hard for that.
That's right.
All right, that's just kind of moving back from that, and you can see where the coffee table at some point got broke.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the door that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, sir.
It would line up with the front door, and that's where the bullets went through that door, through this white wall, through the kitchen, and into the backyard or the woods, and were never found.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, in the sketch, if you look at the top left corner, there's like an arc symbol. That's the actual door, that door in the sketch.
Right there?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you're looking at Defense Exhibit 66, just straight through this front door back there, you can tell where it's at.
Yes, sir. And it was offset just a little bit from the front door, but not by much.
Well, not by much, but that was able to, you were able to follow paths.
Yes, sir.
And going through one wall and another and out the back of the house gave you some information.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Looking down that hallway, remember when we had the picture up and we were talking about the left end of the house and the 2 bedrooms? Basically, you go down that hallway and that's where the bedrooms are, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a chair, turning back towards the door, that's the chair where you said that there was some blood found and we're moving back to the front door in Defense Exhibit 45, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is an angle looking out the front door, Defense Exhibit number 40. And you see a white vehicle up there. That's in the area where that silver car was or something, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. It would have been towards that direction.
Right. That's actually, that white vehicle is probably actually one of y'all's vehicles.
It may be. I can't tell from here.
But basically, the gray car that Rico and Chris came in would be over in that direction.
That's
right?
correct.
All right. Now we're looking back out the front door. Let's just put that, make that a little bit bigger. And if you look back out, you can see this area, well, you can see where the phone and the blood was on the porch, and you can see where they were giving medical attention to Benny, and you get back to number 28, don't you?
Yes, sir.
If we look out that front door from a slightly different angle, you can still see where 28 is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you can look up the hill, up to the road, and that's Officer Crater's car, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We've determined that 28 was the main part of Deputy Rice's camera, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
In the front, you can see the stoop, but you can't quite see the stairs to go down, can you?
No, sir. You cannot.
The house, though, is elevated a little bit from where 28 was,
Yes, sir.
and where Rico and Chris were having a confrontation with another member of Benny's family.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so, in order to go from the door to 28, didn't do that very well, but the door to 28, one more time. You would be, if you're standing in the door, you would be pointing to the right and down.
If you're standing at 28,
Now, if you were standing up here in the door,
sorry.
the direction of the shot towards 28 would be, if I'm standing in the door, it would be to the right and down.
Yes, sir.
And of course, you probably were given information that Benny was shot in the right hip, just above the leg, right?
Yes, sir.
So his right side would have been facing out to get shot there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if we go back to where Officer Crater's car is, the angle you have to, if we're looking to a front, you would have to be turned more in the leftward direction and pointed upward, wouldn't you?
To shoot towards that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
A little bit leftward, maybe straight, but I don't think it'd be a lot left, but maybe just a little bit.
All right. Well, you can can tell it goes one way out this way and left.
Yes, sir.
And of course, that's much higher up there at Barrel State Road.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to get back to Defense Exhibit number 64. And again, this is not the scale because we know 28, 30, and 29 were more spread out, and this distance is a little different, a little longer probably than that looks there in front. But there was no bullet holes in Officer Prather's car, was it?
No, sir.
And of course, you know, one of the things that you would be looking for to see if somebody was shooting at somebody in that direction was whether their car got hit.
Yes, sir.
In fact, they talked about in their testimony getting behind the engine block because that provides safety, harder to shoot through.
Yes, sir.
Right. And same with U1, Lieutenant Plaxico's truck. If you're looking for evidence that somebody was shooting in the direction of the truck, you would look for bullet holes in the truck.
Yes, sir.
And you didn't find any bullet holes in Lieutenant Plaxico's truck.
We didn't see any bullet holes in those.
All right. Nor were there any in Deputy Rice's patrol car.
No, sir.
Eric Robinson's patrol car, same thing. If you were looking for evidence that somebody was shooting at his car, you would look for bullet holes in his car.
Yes, sir.
And you didn't find any bullet holes in his car.
No, sir, we did not.
And again, you didn't do it yourself, but you had 2 shifts of people with metal detectors.
Yes, sir, we did, yes, sir.
Right? And they walked around all of these areas too, right?
It's my understanding they did. I mean, I didn't physically watch them do the whole thing, but yes, they told me they searched the whole ground.
All right. And you're the supervisor of the crime scene department at the time.
Yes, sir.
And they work for you.
Yes, sir.
That's what you asked them to do.
Yes, sir.
That's what they told you to do. That's what they told you they did.
Yes, yes, sir.
And no slugs were found anywhere near anywhere near Officer Prather's car, Lieutenant Plaxico's car, Deputy Rice's car, or Eric Robinson's car.
That is correct.
Lieutenant Croce, thank you for being here and answering our questions.
You're welcome.
Lieutenant Croce, would it be fair to say that it's easier to find shell casings that are left behind at the scene rather than projectiles that come out of the gun?
Yes, sir.
In other words, if you shoot a gun at an angle up and it continues to travel, it's going to go potentially thousands of feet before it drops to the ground, right?
Yes, sir. It could. I've seen bullets do some crazy stuff.
Okay. Even bullets that might pass through a house, it's from a high enough caliber
Yes.
gun and rifle, it could go all the way
They could go a long
deep
way.
into the woods.
Yes, sir. That could go a long way.
In fact, you can only testify to what you found, not what you didn't find, right?
Correct.
I mean, if someone was standing in the front yard with a rocket launcher and shot it over the house and it kept going, it could be miles away from the scene.
Yes, sir.
But you would never have any physical evidence that somebody was standing in front of you in a barrel state with any kind of gun. You don't have anything like that, right?
That's correct.
Fair enough. But what you did find in the yard, you could match back the guns that were provided to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't find anything in the yard that didn't match back to the weapon.
Yeah, from what I understand, everything was matched back to the weapons that were recovered from the scene.
Casings and any of the projectiles, which were very few. You say very few projectiles that you were able to recover from
Yes, sir.
these shots.
Yes, sir.
So even though you can't rule out that there was 5 other guns in the front yard, each shot with revolvers that didn't leave behind any evidence, you can't necessarily say that that happened either.
No, sir, I cannot.
Let's go back to the state's 22 or 32. Walter. It's 33. You got 32. Okay, 32 is similar to the picture Mr. Grove showed. It's marked at 28. There was a camera.
Yes, sir.
This is 28. Now, that's where you found it, correct?
Yes, sir.
But that's not necessarily where it was when it was on Deputy Rice, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any way for you to tell where he was standing when he got shot?
No, sir, only thing I can tell you is that's where that camera was found.
He could have been shot over here. Is it possible that the camera was kicked and there were a lot of people in the yard, right?
It's possible, yes, sir.
Possible that it could have been far over here with all the melee after the shooting. Somebody could have kicked it over in that direction.
That's possible, yes, sir.
So he could have been here, or he could have been over here in front of these bushes. There's no way for you to tell that as a forensic example.
No, sir, not based solely on where that camera was found. I cannot tell you where he was when he was shot.
Okay. So there's no way for you to do it to prove one way or another where he was when he was shot.
No, sir, I cannot tell you where he was when he was shot.
Go to 33. Now, it appears, and just looking at this, there's some damage to that canvas. Would that be accurate? You would assume that? This over here doesn't look on this side of it to be, looks like there's some jagged edges, almost as if it was possibly stepped on. Would that be-
Yes, sir, I'd have to actually look at the actual camera to tell you for sure, but that does not be possible.
You can't say that it was or wasn't stepped on or kicked, right?
No, sir, I cannot.
Fair enough. And to your knowledge, that camera was not activated when the shooting happened. None of that footage was captured.
No, sir, I do not know.
Just one last question, series of questions. Mr. Gross asked you about a red vehicle that could have been on the scene before you got there. And that was identified as another family member that was there and that had taken that vehicle from the scene. Through the investigation, they're aware that there was a red Impala on the scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that vehicle was actually searched later at a different location by different officers, right?
That's what I was told, yes, sir.
Right. You stayed on the scene for 13, 14 hours there at Farrell State Road.
Yes, sir, we never searched, we never went to any other location.
Okay. You searched the vehicles that were left there.
Yes, sir.
But the red Impala, at your information, Agent Asbull and Agent Donahue searched that vehicle later on in the evening, correct?
That's my understanding.
But you didn't have anything to do with that?
I did not, no,
So
sir.
you were busy over at Farrell State.
That's correct.
Any other guns turned into y'all that night? Or any other guns found in any of the other vehicles other than the ones that were collected and sent for analysis?
No, sir, I'm not aware of any other guns being collected or submitted to the laboratory in relationship to this case.
Okay, other than essentially
Other than what we submitted.
the three that were fired, excuse me, the two that were fired by law enforcement, Lieutenant Black's gun,
Yes, sir.
rifle shot by the Clinton officer,
Yes, sir.
the defendant's gun was
Yes, sir.
collected. Roger Rice's gun was collected.
Yes, sir.
And you had all those weapons, also the one that Chris Brown turned in later on, that was sent.
Yes, sir. It was actually brought to us and we took custody of it, took it to the lab.
Okay. all the guns you either had turned into you by law enforcement or found as the one of Mr. Brown's house, we're taken for analysis, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're compared to evidence that was found at the scene.
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Briefly.
Yes, sir. Solicitor Stumbo asked you, you can only testify about what you found, right?
That's correct.
And if somebody who's prohibited from owning a gun, hit a gun, didn't hurt any gun, you can't testify about that.
I know nothing about that. No, sir.
All right. And just because you didn't find something, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
That's correct.
Because we know there's bullet fragments that you never found.
That's correct.
All right. And operating with the principle that you can testify about what you did find, you found the main part of Deputy Rice's body camera directly in front of the front door, right?
Yes, sir.
Where you heard that there was a confrontation contemporaneously with what happened.
Yes, sir.
And you were probably given information that as soon as the police started returning fire, the group of family members that was in the yard, some of them took cover, but eventually they all started moving out of the crime scene.
Yes, sir.
Out of the
Yes.
incident location, right?
Correct.
And you were probably also given information that rather than getting the names of everybody that was there that was eyewitnesses, they told people to clear out.
I wasn't told that. I know nobody was there when we got there. As far as, I didn't know if they were somewhere waiting to be interviewed or what. We don't get involved in the investigative side. We focus solely on the crime scene.
I got you. So if the officers that were there testified to that, you wouldn't contradict?
No, sir, I would not.
Okay. And you also were probably given some information that there was a period of 10 minutes, 15 minutes between when the shooting ended and when Benny got out of the house, was brought out of the house.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. And that during that period of time, they were obviously, for safety reasons, would be keeping people out of the front yard.
That's what I would expect. Yes, sir.
All right. And then you were given information that they secured Benny's location, the house.
Yes, sir.
And when you got there was crime scene tape all the way around it.
Yes, sir.
And that's done so people aren't walking through and stepping on evidence or kicking it around.
That's correct.
And I take it from your testimony, Solicitor Stumbo's never asked you to look at that body cam.
No, sir. And even if we were asked, my department stupid doesn't do that, which is why we turned it over. So we did not look at it. No.
And to your knowledge, nobody at SLED has examined that.
To my knowledge, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you would have gotten a report if they did.
I would not have gotten any report. The lead field agent investigator would have probably received that information. That's who we are giving our information to.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Further, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
All right, sir, you may step down. Thank you very much for coming. If there's no objection, we'll allow them to leave.
No objection.
No objection. Thank you. Your next witness should take hopefully 30 minutes.
Folks, the last two should be much shorter, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, lunch is here. Lunch is served. Nothing's